Hey everybody, it's Josh. I wanted to talk today about basically our human nature and the darkness of the urges, of the desires, of the ego that go along with it. The first question is, why did God allow evil things to happen? Well, that comes down to free will. We had to have free will, because without it, what would any of this mean? If you make somebody do something, you have complete control over them, like a video game. God's just up there with that joystick, just moving us around where he needs us to go. What would any of it mean? He could already get to that end game without us even existing. He could already do anything he wants to do. He's outside of time and space. He's omnipotent. He's all powerful. So why we have free will is exactly for that reason. We need to live these experiences. For whatever reason, we can't know. I spoke yesterday about how I met God and how I know God personally, have a personal relationship with him, yet I still only understand, 0.000 zeros, 1% of him, if that. Maybe a trillion zeros would be more like it. Probably not even that close. But he wants us to know his pure nature. In fact, not only do we have free will, but we have that desire, that urge to know him inside of us. Now, it can easily be clouded over by evil and darkness. That's just something that sin, evil, all those things, it goes along with free will. But just like you can't force someone to love you, God can, but he doesn't want to force us to love him. He wants us to, as I heard somebody say, he's trying to woo us. He's trying to show us that the path to him is a much better path than the easy road of darkness. And yeah, that darkness is, it offers a lot of feel good, quenching those desires, those urges. Of course, that's why when we're young, almost all of us take those roads, unless we're somehow built and taught very, very well. And I can tell you, as the daughter of a 10 and a almost 7-year-old, these things are very hard to do, especially in today's society. We used to have it to where the kids were at home. They would go to school for a little bit sometimes, but really they would just follow in their parents' footsteps. The man would take over the family business, the farm or whatever, making, a tailor or shoemaker. But that kid already had a purpose. Now, They didn't always want it, but a lot of times they did because they saw, hey, it's scary out there. How the hell am I supposed to make it on my own in this world where everything's a mystery to me? Not only that, but you needed to have the financial stability of inheriting your parents' business a lot of times, or else you would just you'd just be a failure and outcast from society. No, I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm suggesting the need to have purpose in life. But we think when we're young that purpose is just to do what society expects of us. Most of us. Or to do exactly the opposite of what society expects of us. Many of us are rebelling against, raging against the machine, I guess. Although I've heard that band lately, and they seem to rage on behalf of the machine quite a bit lately. But we had to have that free will. We have to have that evil. And yes, there is evil that comes from external sources. The darkness has a very, very big hold on this whole entire universe. And I've mentioned before that why do we have to fight against that? Why do we have to struggle against the darkness? Well, possibly we are in training to be some sort of follow in the footsteps of God. Just like a lot of Christians try to follow in the footsteps of Christ. Maybe we are in training to be some sort of new divine entity in a new universe. Maybe that's what all of our souls are meant to do. United or individual, I don't know. This is just a theory. But it's one that it kind of keeps coming back to me. But even if that's not the case, God has struggled against the darkness since day one. The nothingness. The ultimate darkness. From nothing, everything. And our consciousness, this is another thing that I think atheists don't understand a lot of times. And there are a lot of evolutionary parts of our consciousness, of our mind, of our brain at least. You can mark off to that evolution for survival of the fittest or whatever you want to mark it down to. But why would we ever have an evolutionary need to know our Creator? Why would the first signs of human civilization be temples to God, to worship God, or whatever they thought was God, or whatever they dreamed was God? Why have so many things? Why have philosophy at all? That is not an evolutionary thing. That is a spiritual thing. We all want to know what the meaning of this life is. What more is there? And there is no need for that when all you're here for is just to reproduce, die off, and then reproduce again, spread that bloodline, keep the population going. There's no need for that. If anything, there's a higher need to understand why we're here, what the meaning of all this is, where am I? What am I doing here? Science can never answer those questions. It can't. We might think it can. We might even get so close to figure out just incredible things. You know, the way technology is advancing, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe our downfall. Because those who think that a loving God would never make evil, yet they believe in things like AI because they think that there's no human emotions wrapped up in there. There's simply logic and knowledge, and that's as pure as you can get for scientists and a lot of atheists. But there is no urge to know. There is no desire to just understand why we are in this place. And maybe one day there will be. Who knows? Maybe the AI will be the Antichrist. It will seem so perfect, so most of the world will follow it. In fact, I don't see how it could be much worse than the leaders that we have now. I don't see how putting a damn monkey in the Congress and the White House or wherever can be any worse than what we have now. We are a people who are so flawed, yet overcoming those flaws is a lot of discovering who we are and why we're here. Because once we can discover ourselves, that spirituality, that spiritual awakening, or that just knowledge of who we are, who we want to be. And if we can discover that and put our urges and our ego aside, we still have so much farther to go, but at least we are on the right road. Because until we accept that we cannot be those things without God, then we will be lost. Now, it'll be a lot easier for someone who has had that spiritual breakthrough, that self-discovery, that wisdom that comes with experience even. It'll be so much easier for them. Because those people are, at least they're trying. Now, they might be trying in the absolute worst ways, absolutely. But they want to know more, and they are following that thread. They're following those breadcrumbs. But I'm telling you that after you find most of what you're looking for, you think it's, as I've said, I've explained how I did, quite a bit of psychedelics when I was in my early 20s, mainly. And I didn't do them because I just want to get high, like a lot of people do drugs to escape. I did not do them to escape. There were times I guess I'd done things to escape, mainly alcohol, I guess, for sure. But the psychedelics I did because I wanted to find my way to God, to find out more of what is out there, to be a voyager into the cosmos of the unknown. I needed that. I had that urge so strongly. I didn't know what else to do because nothing else seemed to work. And of course, I kept hearing about, I read a lot about the 60s and 70s when LSD was first kind of coming, and magic mushrooms and all these things were kind of coming into the mainstream. And I kept seeing people saying they met God. And I was like, wow, really? I'm going to do that. But just as most things, it was deceit. It was just pure I won't say that I would never ever say that I would take it back. Even though I basically had an almost, not almost, a nervous breakdown from it. I just wanted, why am I not meeting God when I'm doing these things? I'm seeing so much. I'm seeing this spiritual world beyond what my earthly senses can detect. So where's God in all this? Surely he's somewhere. He's in the unknown. He's in the unseen. Where is he? Now there's quite a bit of other entities there. And I guess we can easily fool ourselves into thinking that is God. For a long time, I think I was hot on the trail. I think I thought I was hot on the trail because I was sensing these other presences. And there were good and there were bad entities, beings, maybe angels and demons, I don't know. You hear talk about the drug DMT, which is like I think it's the same drug that's in ayahuasca, but it's also made naturally in our brains, in our pineal gland. And people talk about these machine elves or these purple troll type beings that they encounter. Maybe those are demons. Maybe they are angels. I guess they could be fallen angels. Who knows? Or they could be just aliens in some other dimension that we cannot see until we take that substance that brings us there, that gateway. I really do think that, we need to understand that there is so much out there that we will never know. And a curious mind like mine had to know. If I see something, if I go walking in the woods like I am now, and I see there's something farther than I've ever been, something that looks kind of cool, or a curve in the trail that seems pretty far up, but it's not too far. I have to go and see it. God made me curious. That curiosity can be dangerous, absolutely. Now, I believe firmly that God sent me where I needed to go. I needed to do those psychedelics when I was young. I needed to make all the mistakes I did when I was young. It was all part of my learning process. But when God saved me, and even really the few years before God saved me, that curiosity was more pure. It was the curiosity of a young child discovering a new patch of woods, a new cool place to go play. I let my curiosity bounce from one thing to another. It started, I think, the thing that kind of triggered all these just, I guess, like a grand finale of curiosity before, in the few years before my awakening or my rebirth, was I kicked over a rock and found a garnet. And it happened to be right in the spot many years before, like 3 years before God saved me. It happened just in the same little stretch of shoreline in Falls Lake. So I kicked over that rock and I saw that garnet. And something inside of me my spirits had been low for so long, but my soul just lit up. And so I spent the next few really years just going crazy trying to find all the different areas in my and around the Raleigh area, trying to find cool little gems and minerals and everything I could. And that got me out into the woods. And I saw how good that I felt when I was in the woods. I even started going out a lot of days when it was too hot to even be out there. But I would just drag myself out there and just stay for a little bit less. But till I was sweating so bad I thought I was going to pass out. But that curiosity just took me. And so I started thinking about different things, and I would obviously look for different places to go on the trails and different areas, and I'd mark this area as maybe, this area has gems, this one doesn't, stay away from that one. But then I started thinking about how much I love being out in the woods. And I would think about things like, oh man, when I was younger, I'd always wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail. And I knew I couldn't do it now because of my back. So I was like, I'll just do the next best thing and I'll just listen to books. And I probably read a lot of them I listened to on Audible. A couple of them I read. But just books on people who'd hike the Appalachian Trail. I got really into, I can't even remember why. I got really into coyotes at one point because I found out all these cool things about coyotes and how they were such smart animals. Oh, I remember what it was. My sister, I believe this is what started. My sister worked at a veterinary clinic, and they took in wild animals at times, and they got a coyote in, a little coyote pup. But they weren't allowed to keep it legally in Virginia, so they had to say it was a fox. So they were allowed to keep it until they could find some state that would take it, because in Virginia you have to kill a coyote if you see it. You can't have it as a pet for sure. You can't have it in captivity. But I mean, there were hundreds of these little things I would just get so curious about. Finding edible mushrooms, edible plants. I still love going out and, finding, obviously the blackberries are easy to find, but, other edible plants and stuff like that. And when I can find mushrooms, I'm not very good at it, but I found some that I thought were oyster mushrooms, and good thing I checked online. Always verify before you eat something you find. Even if you're almost 100% sure, just verify. It can be dangerous. But I let my curiosity run like a child. And that's what God wants. Because that curiosity has a love and compassion in it. Helps us see the beauty in the world, so it helps ignite our love and compassion. I really do think that we all have to strive to constantly, we might think our life is at a standstill. And believe me, I did too. But you're still here. That means there's still a reason you're here. You might even be almost immobile, but as much as you can move, you need to get out and see everything you can see. And if you can't, read about it or watch movies about it or do whatever you can. Engulf yourself in the Bible. I was also talking about, or thinking a lot about how, the Bible was just so hard for me to understand for most of my life. It still is at times. I'll have to sit and reread something and be like, wow, and sometimes I'll even have to get other people's take on it. But sometimes the wisdom just pops right out at me. I've mentioned it like those, I think they were called magic eyes, where it's like a poster that was like a design on it, and you had to stare at it and let your eyes focus on one spot, and then all of a sudden this 3D design would pop out at you. To me, that was what it felt like with the wisdom in the Bible. And I really did, when I started understanding the wisdom behind it, it changed my life. But I think that there's many other ways that people can get a lot of those stories. And some Christians get mad about this, but I loved the Chosen, the show The Chosen. I think season 4 is supposed to be out anytime. I don't know what the holdup is, but it's already done, I know. But it is about the life of Christ and all the disciples, and it goes into the disciples more personally than the Bible does. So of course they have to add dialogue, and they have to add a couple little things to the story. Like there's a bunch of disciples that we didn't know who they were. So I just did it. But check it out if you haven't, because it's an amazing show. Okay, that's it for now. God bless.